Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair aboard the Earth Defense Station, watching the stars through the massive viewport. The coffee in his mug had gone cold hours ago, but he barely noticed. His mind was focused on the routine patrol, reports scrolling across his screen when the communication system suddenly erupted with urgent beeping sounds. "Captain, we're receiving an emergency transmission from deep space," called out Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez from the communications station. Her voice carried a note of confusion that immediately caught Jake's attention. "The signal is using the standard Galactic protocol, but the message content is unlike anything we've seen before." Jake stood up and walked over to Amy's station. The young officer had been monitoring deep space communications for 3 years, and she rarely sounded this uncertain. "Put it through the main speakers," he ordered. Settling back into his chair, the voice that filled the command center was unlike anything human ears had ever heard. It spoke in perfect English, but the tone was cold and mechanical, with strange, harmonic overtones that suggested the speaker was not human. "This is Ambassador Zethkara of the Vorthan Empire, speaking on behalf of the Galactic Council. We demand an immediate explanation for your unprecedented act of aggression against the sacred world of Kepler 442b. Jake felt his blood run cold. The Galactic Council had made contact with Earth only 6 months ago, and relations had been cautious but peaceful. The idea that humans had committed an act of aggression was impossible. "Are you certain this transmission is authentic?" he asked. "Amy, the encryption codes match our diplomatic protocols," Amy replied, her fingers dancing across her console. "But Captain, I don't understand what they're talking about. We haven't launched any military operations toward Kepler 442b. The alien voice continued, and Jake could hear anger building in its strange tones. "Your invasion fleet approaches the sanctuary of First Light, carrying weapons of unprecedented destructive power. The Council has monitored your massive warships and their energy signatures. We cannot allow this violation of galactic law to proceed." Jake's mind raced as he tried to understand what the aliens were describing. Then suddenly a terrible realization struck him. "Get me Commander Lisa Rodriguez in the science lab," he barked, "and patch me through to Dr. Kevin Barnes at the Deep Space Array. We need answers now." Within minutes, both officers appeared on the main screen. Lisa Rodriguez looked as confused as Jake felt, while Kevin Barnes was frantically checking data streams on his tablet. "Captain, I've been monitoring the Genesis Project convoy," Kevin said. "They're still 3 days out from Kepler 442b, maintaining standard approach vectors." "The Genesis Project," Jake repeated slowly. The pieces were beginning to fall into place, and he didn't like what he was seeing. "Lisa, remind me about the convoy's composition." Commander Rodriguez pulled up a holographic display showing the massive fleet of ships heading toward humanity's first colony world. 50,000 colonists aboard 12 city ships, each vessel measuring 3 kilometers in length. They're accompanied by terraforming equipment, construction materials, and a full military escort of 36 warships. Jake stared at the display, seeing it now through alien eyes. The human colonization fleet was enormous by galactic standards, carrying more people than most alien worlds had in their entire populations. The city ships were massive, industrial vessels designed to transport entire communities across the void of space. To alien sensors, they would appear as gigantic weapons platforms, the military escort, Jake said quietly. "How many ships?" 36 cruisers and destroyers, Lisa replied. "Standard protection for a civilian convoy of this size." Kevin Barnes looked up from his tablet with a grim expression. "Captain, I think I understand what's happening. The aliens are interpreting our colonization fleet as an invasion armada. Their sensors are detecting massive energy signatures from our city ships and assuming they're weapons platforms." The communication system crackled to life again as Ambassador Zethkara's voice filled the room. "You have 72 hours to explain your actions before the Council's defense fleets engage your invasion force. Any attempt to proceed toward the sanctuary will be met with immediate military response." Jake felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. A simple misunderstanding was about to trigger the first interstellar war in galactic history. Amy, get me a priority channel to Earth Command. Tell them we have a code red diplomatic crisis. As Amy worked to establish the connection, Jake turned to Lisa and Kevin. I need you both to prepare a complete briefing on human colonization procedures. We need to make the aliens understand that we're not invaders. Lisa nodded grimly. The problem is that our entire approach to space travel is different from theirs. We bring our families, our communities, our entire civilization with us when we colonize new worlds. Most alien species send small research teams or temporary outposts. And they've never encountered a species that builds permanent settlements, Kevin added. To them, the idea of altering an entire planet to suit our needs probably seems like an act of war. Jake walked back to his command chair, his mind working through the implications. The Genesis Project represented humanity's greatest achievement and their hope for the future. 50,000 volunteers had left Earth to build a new home among the stars, carrying with them everything they needed to establish a thriving human community on Kepler-442b. But to the aliens, this looked like an invasion. The massive city ships, the military escort, the terraforming equipment all pointed to a species that conquered worlds rather than peacefully exploring them. The aliens had no context for understanding that humans were simply doing what they had always done, migrating to new places and building homes there. Captain, I have Admiral Patricia Cole on the line, Amy announced. Jake straightened in his chair as the Admiral's stern face appeared on the main screen. Patricia Cole was a veteran of the Mars Colony Wars and had been instrumental in establishing Earth's first interstellar defense protocols. If anyone could help navigate this crisis, it would be her. Admiral, we have a situation, Jake began, quickly summarizing the alien transmission and their analysis of the misunderstanding. Admiral Cole listened without interruption, her expression growing more serious with each detail. When Jake finished, she was quiet for a long moment. So they think we're invading their sacred world, she said finally, and they're mobilizing their entire fleet to stop us. That's correct, Admiral. We have less than 72 hours to convince them that our intentions are peaceful. And if we can't? Jake looked at the tactical display showing the estimated positions of alien fleets throughout the galaxy. Then we'll be facing a war against species we barely understand, with technology we can't match and odds that are completely against. U.S., Admiral Cole nodded slowly. I'm calling an emergency session of the Global Defense Council. We need to mobilize every diplomatic resource we have. The fate of the Genesis Project and possibly all of humanity depends on making the aliens understand who we really are. The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in the void between star systems, its crystalline spires reaching out like frozen lightning. Ambassador Helen Carter stood at the viewport of her quarters, watching alien ships arrive from every corner of the galaxy. Each vessel was different from the last, representing species she had only read about in diplomatic files. Her aide, Lieutenant Commander Ryan Phillips, entered the room carrying a data tablet. Ambassador, the council session begins in 2 hours. I've prepared the presentation materials, but I have to warn you that the preliminary reports from our intelligence teams are not encouraging. Helen turned away from the viewport, her expression calm despite the gravity of the situation. She had served as Earth's first diplomatic representative to the galaxy for only 3 months, but she had learned to read the subtle signs of alien body language and communication patterns. What are we facing, Ryan? The council speaker is a being called Morthak from the Andromeda sector. According to our files, his species communicates through harmonic vibrations in crystal formations. He's already made several public statements calling humanity a threat to galactic stability. Ryan scrolled through his tablet. The worst news is that most of the council members seem to agree with him. Helen walked to her desk and picked up a small device that looked like a metallic flower. It was a universal translator, specially modified for human use. They're afraid of us because they don't understand us. Our job is to make them understand. The council chamber was enormous, with seating arranged in concentric circles around a central speaking platform. Helen had never seen so many different alien species in one place. There were beings made of living crystal, others that looked like walking trees, and some that appeared to be made of pure energy contained in mechanical suits. Council Speaker Morthic stood at the center of the chamber, his crystalline body pulsing with different colors as he spoke. We gather today to address the most serious threat to galactic peace in recorded history. The species known as humans has launched an unprecedented invasion of the sacred world Kepler 442b. Helen felt her stomach tighten as she looked around the chamber. The alien representatives were watching her with expressions that ranged from curiosity to outright hostility. She had studied their cultures for months, but seeing them all together, like this, was overwhelming. Ambassador Carter, Mortha continued, his voice creating harmonics that made the chamber's walls vibrate, you have been granted the opportunity to explain your species' actions. The Council will hear your words, but know that the evidence against humanity is overwhelming. Helen stepped onto the speaking platform, her heart pounding. Honored Council members, I stand before you today to address what I believe is a fundamental misunderstanding about human intentions and behavior. A delegate from the Zephyrian Empire, a tall being with 6 arms and skin that shimmered like oil on water, stood up. There's no misunderstanding, human. Your invasion fleet carries weapons capable of destroying entire star systems. We have monitored your energy signatures. Those are not weapons, Helen replied, activating her holographic display. They are city ships designed to transport human families and communities across space. What you interpret as weapons are actually life support systems, manufacturing facilities, and agricultural modules. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of alien voices, clicks, and harmonic vibrations. Helen waited for quiet before continuing. Perhaps I should explain how humans approach space travel and colonization. High Counselor Vexnari of the Zephyrian delegation moved closer to the platform. Your species builds permanent settlements on other worlds. This is known to us. What disturbs the Council is your methods. You alter entire planetary ecosystems to suit your needs. Helen nodded. That's correct. When humans settle on a new world, we bring everything we need to establish a thriving community. We bring families, children, teachers, farmers, and artists. We build schools, hospitals, and parks. We create homes. You destroy what exists to build what you want, Vexnari replied coldly. This is not exploration or research. This is conquest. With respect, Counselor, that's not how we see it, Helen said. Humans evolved as a species that migrated across our homeworld. We learned to adapt to different environments while building communities wherever we went. When we go to space, we simply do what we've always done. A delegate from the ethereal collective, a being that appeared to be made of swirling energy, spoke in a voice like wind chimes. Most species in the galaxy maintain connection to their homeworld. We visit other planets for resources, knowledge, or spiritual purposes, but we always return home. The idea of making another world into a permanent home is alien to us. Helen felt a moment of clarity. I think this is where the misunderstanding lies. Humans don't see other worlds as foreign places to visit. We see them as potential homes for our children and grandchildren. The chamber fell silent as the aliens processed this information. Helen continued, the Genesis Project isn't an invasion. It's 50,000 volunteers who left Earth to build a new human community on Kepler 442. They are carrying everything they need to establish schools, hospitals, farms, and homes. They plan to live there for the rest of their lives and raise their children there. And the military escort, demanded a delegate from the Corvani Empire, a massive being covered in metallic scales. Why do peaceful colonists need such protection? Because space is dangerous, Helen replied. Our ships carry families, including children. We would never send them into the void without adequate protection. The military escort is there to defend against pirates, asteroids, and other hazards. General Thakmur, the Corvani war chief, stood up from his seat. His species looked like armored reptiles, and his presence dominated the chamber. Your explanations change nothing. A species that spreads across the galaxy, altering worlds to suit their needs, is an existential threat to all established civilizations? But we don't threaten existing civilizations, Helen protested. Kepler 442b is an uninhabited world. We're not displacing anyone. You're missing the point, Thakmor replied. Your species multiplies rapidly and spreads to new worlds. Today it's one uninhabited planet. Tomorrow it will be 10. In a century it will be 1,000. Where does it end? Helen looked around the chamber, seeing fear in the alien faces. It ends when humans find places where they can live in peace and build good lives for their families. We're not trying to conquer the galaxy. We're trying to find our place in it. Dr. Susan Grant's voice crackled over the communication system from the Genesis Project convoy. Council members, I am the chief architect of the colonization mission. I want to address the concerns about our intentions. The holographic display showed Susan standing in what looked like a classroom filled with human children. These are some of the families traveling to Kepler 442b. They're teachers, doctors, farmers, and engineers. They've left everything they knew on Earth to build a new home among the stars. And if other species object to your presence? Thakmor asked. What then? Susan smiled sadly. Then we'll find another world. Space is vast and humans are patient. We're not interested in conflict. We just want to build homes where our children can grow up in peace. The chamber erupted again as delegates argued among themselves. Helen watched the chaos and realized that no amount of explanation would overcome the fundamental fear that humans represented something entirely new in Galactic. Civilization? President Andrew Harrison stood at the head of the emergency conference table in the Global Defense Council chambers, his face grave as he looked at the assembled military leaders. The room was filled with tension as reports from Nexus Prime continued to arrive, each one worse than the last. The diplomatic talks have failed, he announced to the room. The Galactic Council has voted to authorize military action against the Genesis Project convoy. Their fleets are already moving into position. General Robert King, a veteran of 3 colonial wars, leaned forward in his chair. What are we looking at in terms of numbers, sir? Admiral Sarah Johnson activated the holographic display above the table. Intelligence reports suggest we're facing a combined fleet of over 2,000 alien vessels. They have ships from 12 different species, including the Corvani Empire's battle cruisers and the Vorthan Empire's dreadnoughts. Colonel Danny Martinez, Chief of Staff, whistled low. Our entire defense fleet numbers less than 400 ships. We're outnumbered 5-1. The odds are worse than that, Admiral Johnson continued. We're not just outnumbered, we're outgunned. Alien weapons technology is centuries ahead of ours in some areas. Their energy shields can deflect our missiles, and their plasma cannons can punch through our armor like paper. President Harrison walked to the window overlooking the city below. So we can't win a conventional war. What are our options? Dr. Michelle Torres, head of the Xenocultural Analysis Division, stood up from her seat at the far end of the table. I've been studying galactic warfare patterns for the past 6 months. I believe I've found something that might help us. She activated her own display, showing footage of various alien conflicts from the past century. Most galactic species approach warfare very differently than humans do. Their conflicts are highly ritualized with strict rules about targets, tactics, and duration. What kind of rules? Asked General King. For example, the Corvani Empire never attacks civilian targets. The Vorthan Empire considers it dishonorable to use more than 3 ships against a single enemy vessel. The Ethereal Collective refuses to fight during their religious observances, which occur every 15 days. Admiral Johnson frowned. That sounds like they're playing games rather than fighting wars. In a way, they are, Dr. Torres replied. Most alien species evolve from prey animals or hive minds. They view conflict as something to be avoided or minimized. When they do fight, it's usually over resources or territory, not survival. President Harrison turned back to the group. And humans are different? Completely different, Dr. Torres said. We evolved as persistence hunters. We used cooperation and tool-making to overcome larger, stronger predators. When humans fight, we fight to win, using every advantage we can find. Colonel Martinez leaned back in his chair. So their weakness is that they don't understand total war. Exactly. They expect us to follow their rules, fight their way, and surrender when our military is defeated. They have no concept of a species that will turn every civilian ship into a weapon, every asteroid into a missile, and every citizen into a soldier. Captain Alex Stone, commander of the prototype warship UES Defiance, had been listening quietly from the corner of the room. "What are you suggesting, Doctor?" "I'm suggesting we give them something they've never seen before. A human war." President Harrison returned to his seat. "Explain." Dr. Torres changed the display to show tactical simulations. The alien fleets are moving in traditional formation, expecting to engage our military vessels in formal battle. They have no idea that we're already converting civilian ships into weapons platforms. Admiral Johnson nodded. Commander Nicole Baker's engineering teams have been working around the clock. They've retrofitted over 200 merchant vessels with missile launchers and armor plating, and Captain Peter Clark's pilot training program has been teaching civilian crews how to use their ships as weapons, added Colonel Martinez. Cargo. Haulers, passenger liners, even mining ships are being turned into combatants. Captain Stone moved to the display. The key is that we don't fight like they expect. We use swarm tactics, hit-and-run attacks, and psychological warfare. We make them afraid to advance, afraid to retreat, afraid to stay in one place. "But can we actually win?" President Harrison asked. "We don't need to win," Dr. Torres replied. "We need to survive long enough to show them that humans are not like other species. Once they understand what we're capable of, they might be willing to negotiate." General King stood up. "I'll mobilize the reserve fleets. Every ship that can carry a weapon will be pressed into service. And I'll coordinate with the civilian authorities," added Admiral Johnson. "We'll need volunteers for the converted ships." Captain Stone stepped forward. "Sir, I'd like to take the Defiance and a small task force to intercept the alien advance. Units. If we can give them a taste of human tactics before the main battle, it might buy us time." President Harrison nodded grimly. "Do it, but remember, we're not trying to start a war. We're trying to end one before it destroys both sides." Chief Engineer Maria Santos had been working for 18 hours straight, but she showed no signs of stopping. The cargo bay of the converted freighter UES Relentless had been transformed into a weapons platform, with missile launchers mounted where shipping containers used to be stored. "How many ships do we have operational?" asked Captain Stone as he toured the facility. 47 converted vessels in this sector alone," Maria replied, wiping grease from her hands. "They're not pretty, but they'll fight." Lieutenant Ben Davis, the Defiance's tactical officer, was training civilian crews on the converted ships. "The important thing to remember is that you're not trying to win a fair fight. You're trying to survive and make the enemy pay for every meter of space." The volunteers were a mix of merchant spacers, mining crews, and transport pilots. They had never been trained for combat, but they knew their ships better than any military crew. "Use your knowledge of your vessel's capabilities," Ben continued. "A mining ship can use its drilling laser as a weapon. A cargo hauler can ram enemy vessels. A passenger liner can release its escape pods as decoys." Captain Stone watched the training with mixed emotions. These were ordinary people who had volunteered to risk their lives for a cause they might not fully understand. "They're not soldiers," he said quietly to Maria. "No," she agreed. "They're something the aliens have never encountered. They're humans, fighting for their families." The first engagement came sooner than expected. The Defiance and her small task force encountered a Vorthan patrol group near the outer edge of the solar system. The alien ships were massive, beautiful vessels that looked more like works of art than weapons of war. "They're hailing us," reported Lieutenant Davis from his tactical station. "Put them through," Captain Stone ordered. The alien commander appeared. On the main screen, his reptilian features showing confusion. Human vessels, you are ordered to surrender and submit to escort back to your homeworld. Resistance is futile. This is Captain Stone of the Earth Defense Force. We decline your offer. You have 3 ships against our 12. Your defeat is certain. Why do you choose to die uselessly? Captain Stone smiled grimly. Because we're human, and humans don't know how to quit. The battle that followed was unlike anything in Galactic history. The human ships scattered in all directions, refusing to fight in formation. They used the solar system's asteroids as cover, launching surprise attacks and disappearing before the aliens could respond. The Vorthan commander watched in horror as one of the human ships deliberately rammed his flagship, causing massive damage. To both vessels, "They're insane," he reported to his fleet. "They fight like they have nothing to lose." But the humans did have something to lose. They were fighting for their families, their future, and their right to exist among the stars. And that made them more dangerous than any weapon the galaxy had ever seen. The Tau Ceti system had become a battlefield unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Admiral Jennifer Walsh stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the tactical display as human and alien forces engaged in a deadly dance among the asteroids. Her third fleet was vastly outnumbered, but they were fighting with a desperation that seemed to confuse their enemies. "The Crimson Talon battle group is moving to surround us," reported her tactical officer. "They're using standard encirclement tactics." "Then we don't give them a standard response," Admiral Walsh replied. "Signal all ships to break formation and engage independently. Use the asteroids as cover and hit them from unexpected angles." The Vorthan Empire's Crimson Talon was considered one of the finest battle groups in galactic history. Their ships moved with precise coordination, each vessel knowing exactly where the others would be at any given moment. But their rigid formations became a weakness when facing humans who refused to fight according to established rules. Commander Chris Anderson led his squadron of modified fighters through the asteroid field, his pilots following paths that no alien would consider safe. "Remember, we're not trying to defeat them in single combat," he radioed to his team. "We're trying to cause as much damage as possible before they can react." The human fighters dove through the enemy formations like angry wasps, their smaller size and superior maneuverability allowing them to avoid the massive but slow-firing alien weapons. Chris watched as one of his pilots, Lieutenant Kate Miller, used her damaged fighter to ram directly into the bridge of an alien cruiser rather than eject and surrender. "They're not fighting to win," reported the Vorthan commander to his fleet. "They're fighting to hurt us as much as possible before they die." But the humans were learning that their enemies could be hurt in ways beyond simple weapons fire. The alien crews were not prepared for the psychological impact of facing an enemy that seemed to welcome death in battle. When human ships were damaged beyond repair, their crews often chose to ram enemy vessels rather than surrender. The turning point came when Captain Lavra Thompson's ship, the UES Relentless, detected an alien vessel in distress. The ship belonged to the Ethereal Collective, a peaceful species that had been forced to join the galactic fleet against their will. The crew had abandoned their vessel and were floating in space, waiting for rescue. "Captain, we have 30 enemy survivors off our starboard bow," reported the tactical officer. "They're defenseless." Captain Thompson looked at the display, knowing that her ship was badly damaged and unlikely to survive much longer. "Change course to intercept. We're going to rescue them." "Ma'am, they're the enemy. And we're barely holding together ourselves. They're people in danger," Lavar replied firmly. "And that's all that matters." The Relentless limped toward the alien survivors, its hull cracked and atmosphere leaking into space. The human crew worked frantically to prepare their emergency bay for alien physiology, using whatever medical knowledge they had to create a safe environment for the rescued beings. The Ethereal Collective survivors were brought aboard just as the Relentless suffered a catastrophic engine failure. Captain Thompson made the decision to abandon ship, but not before ensuring that both her human crew and the alien refugees were safely evacuated to rescue pods. Dr. Frank Miller, monitoring the battle from Earth, watched the rescue operation with growing amazement. "This changes everything," he told his team. The aliens are seeing something they never expected from humans. The rescued aliens were picked up by other vessels from the Ethereal Collective, and their testimony spread rapidly throughout the Galactic fleet. The beings spoke of humans who had risked their lives to save enemies they had never met, who had shown compassion even in the midst of desperate battle. "The humans saved us," reported one of the survivors to the Galactic Council. "Their ship was dying, but they still came to help. They treated our wounds and shared their food and water." News of the rescue reached the other alien species involved in the conflict. The Corvani Empire, known for their warrior culture, began to question their assumptions about human nature. If humans were truly the savage conquerors they had been described as, why would they risk their lives to save alien civilians? The battle continued for 3 more days, but the character of the fighting began to change. Alien commanders found themselves hesitating before firing on human vessels, knowing that their enemies might be carrying rescued crew members from previous engagements. Commander Nicole Baker, working from a converted mining station, monitored the communications between alien fleets. "They're starting to argue among themselves," she reported to Earth Command. "The Ethereal Collective is refusing to participate in further attacks. Some of the smaller species are questioning the Council's orders." The psychological impact of human behavior was spreading throughout the galactic forces. The aliens had expected to face a traditional military opponent, but instead they were confronting a species that seemed to operate by completely different rules. Captain Peter Clark, leading a group of converted civilian vessels, demonstrated this difference during a skirmish with a Corvani patrol. Instead of retreating when his force was outnumbered, he used his knowledge of human nature to turn the engagement into a rescue mission. "We're detecting distress signals from that damaged alien ship," he reported to his crew. "It looks like their life support is failing." The Corvani commander watched in confusion as the human ships, which had been fighting fiercely just moments before, suddenly changed course to assist his damaged vessel. "Why do you help us?" he demanded when Peter's ship came alongside. "Because you need help," Peter replied simply. "And because that's what humans do." The rescue operation was broadcast across the Galactic fleet, and the images of human and alien crews working together to save lives had a profound impact on the watching galaxy. The Corvani commander found himself questioning everything he had believed about the human threat. Dr. Frank Miller analyzed the changing dynamics of the conflict from his laboratory on Earth. "The aliens are discovering that humans don't fit into their understanding of how species behave during warfare. They expected us to follow their rules, but we're showing them something entirely different." The revelation went beyond simple military tactics. The aliens were beginning to understand that humans approached conflict with a fundamentally different psychology. While most galactic species fought for territory, resources, or dominance, humans seemed to fight for principles that transcended immediate survival. "They're not just trying to defeat us," observed one alien commander. "They're trying to show us who they are." The battle for the Tau Ceti system was reaching its climax, but both sides were beginning to realize that the real conflict was not about military victory. It was about whether the galaxy could find room for a species that operated according to values that other civilizations had never encountered. As the fighting continued, more and more alien vessels began to question their orders. The rescue operations, the acts of compassion, and the willingness of humans to sacrifice themselves for others were creating doubt throughout the galactic fleet. The war was far from over, but something fundamental had changed. The aliens were no longer fighting an enemy they understood, and the humans were proving that their greatest weapon was not their technology or their tactics, but their humanity itself. The massive alien fleet surrounded Kepler 442 like a metal storm, thousands of ships from dozens of species creating a barrier that no force in galactic history had ever broken through. Admiral Charles Wright stood on the bridge of the Genesis Project flagship, looking out at the overwhelming display of alien military power that blocked his path to humanity's new home. "Admiral, we're receiving surrender demands from 17 different species," reported his communications officer. They're offering safe passage back to Earth if we abandon the colonization mission? Admiral Wright looked at the tactical display, showing the positions of the alien fleets. Every avenue of approach was blocked, every escape route cut off. Behind him, 50,000 human colonists waited in the city ships, their entire lives packed into the massive vessels that had carried them across the void. "Get me Dr. Karen White," he ordered. "I want to speak to the colony expedition leader." Dr. White appeared on the screen, her face showing the strain of the past weeks, but her eyes still bright with determination. "Admiral, the colonists are ready to proceed. They understand the risks. Karen, we're facing the largest military force in galactic history. If we continue toward the planet, we'll be starting a war that could destroy both sides." "Then we don't fight," she replied simply. "We do what we came here to do. We build a home." Major Tim Johnson, the colony's security chief, joined Dr. White on the screen. "Admiral, I've been talking to the families aboard the city ships. They didn't come all this way just to turn back at the first sign of trouble." Admiral Wright understood their position, but he also understood the impossible odds they faced. "The alien commanders are expecting us to either surrender or attack. What you're suggesting is something else entirely." "We're suggesting we show them who we really are," Dr. White said. "Not as conquerors or invaders, but as people who want to build a better future for their children." The Admiral made his decision. "All ships proceed to planetary orbit. Do not power weapon systems. Repeat, do not power weapon systems. We're going to begin colonization procedures." The alien fleet commanders watched in amazement as the human ships moved past their battle lines without firing a shot. The humans were heading directly toward the planet, but they were not behaving like an invasion force. Instead, they were acting like exactly what they claimed to be, colonists looking for a new home. General Fakemur of the Corvani Empire contacted the other fleet commanders. "What are they doing? This makes no tactical sense." "They're ignoring us," replied the Vorthan commander. "They're proceeding with their mission as if we weren't here." The human city ships entered orbit around Kepler 442b and began their carefully planned colonization procedures. The aliens watched through their sensors as the humans deployed orbital platforms, launched survey drones, and began the process of establishing their new home. Dr. White led the first group of colonists to the planet's surface, accompanied by Engineer Joe Martinez and teacher Amy Rodriguez. They set up their initial base camp in full view of the alien fleets, working calmly and efficiently despite the weapons pointed at them from orbit. "They're building houses," reported one alien observer. "And schools. They're actually building schools." The colonists worked through the day, constructing the basic infrastructure of their new community. Children helped their parents clear land for gardens while teachers set up temporary classrooms under the alien sky. The sight of human families working together to build a home was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Captain Paul Brown served as the colony's liaison with the alien forces, and he made a decision that would change everything. He sent a message to all the fleet commanders, inviting them to visit the human settlement. "You're welcome to see what we're building," he told them. "We have nothing to hide." The first to accept the invitation was a representative from the Ethereal Collective, the same species that had been rescued by human forces during the battle. The being materialized in the center of the human colony, its energy form flickering with curiosity. "Why do you build permanent structures?" the alien asked. "Why not temporary shelters that can be easily moved?" Amy Rodriguez, who was teaching a group of human children nearby, looked up from her lesson. "Because this is our home now. We plan to live here for the rest of our lives and raise our children here." The alien observed the human children playing in the colony's first playground, their laughter echoing across the alien landscape. "These young ones will know no other world?" "They'll know about Earth from our stories," Amy replied. "But this will be their home. This is where they'll grow up, go to school, fall in love, and have children of their own." The concept was revolutionary to the alien mind. Most galactic species maintained strong connections to their homeworlds, viewing other planets as temporary. Stopping points. The idea of making a new world into a permanent home was almost incomprehensible. More alien representatives began visiting the colony, each one trying to understand what they were seeing. The Corvani delegate, a warrior who had spent his life preparing for battle, watched human engineers work alongside alien observers to enhance the planet's ecosystem. "You're not destroying what was here," he observed. "You're adding to it." Joe. Martinez looked up from the terraforming equipment he was installing. "Why would we destroy it? This is going to be our home. We want it to be beautiful for our children." The alien delegates discovered that human colonization was not the destructive process they had imagined. Instead of replacing existing ecosystems, the humans were integrating their technology and biology to enhance the planet's natural beauty. General Fakemore himself finally visited the colony, expecting to find evidence of the aggressive expansion that had so frightened the Galactic Council. Instead, he found human families working together to build a community that welcomed diversity and cooperation. "You invite your former enemies to help build your home," he said to Captain Brown. "This is not the behavior of conquerors." "We were never conquerors," Paul replied. "We were just people looking for a place to belong." The turning point came when a group of human children approached the alien general, offering him flowers they had grown in the colony's first garden. The sight of the massive warrior surrounded by laughing human children was broadcast across the galaxy, and the image changed everything. Ambassador Helen Carter, monitoring the situation from Nexus Prime, watched as the Galactic Council's attitude shifted. "The vote is being called," she reported to Earth. "The Council is reconsidering their position." The formal ceremony took place in the human colony itself, with representatives from every species in the galaxy gathered to witness the signing of the Treaty of Kepler 442b. The document recognized humanity's right to establish colonies throughout the galaxy, while also establishing protocols for peaceful coexistence. "Today we welcome a new member to our galactic community," announced Council Speaker Morthuk. "A species that has shown us that expansion and cooperation are not mutually exclusive." The treaty established humanity as the galaxy's first official colonization species, with the understanding that human settlements would enhance rather than threaten existing civilizations. The former enemies had become partners in building a better future among the stars. Captain Jake Morrison, now serving as Earth's military liaison to the Galactic Council, stood in the colony's central plaza watching human and alien children play together. The misunderstanding that had nearly led to interstellar war had instead created a new era of cooperation and mutual understanding. The galaxy had learned that humans were not conquerors or invaders, but builders and dreamers who carried their hopes for the future wherever they went. And in learning this, they had discovered that the universe was big enough for everyone to find their place among the stars.